Thank you very much for joining me at the AGOA Forum, the private sector event that is taking place at the U.S. Institute of Peace. Today is the first day of this 3-day forum. And you've traveled from the capital of the world, from Delaware. Which is also where one of our favorite Senator Cruz is from, as well as someone that the whole world know about. So, so talk to us. You're here. The U.S. is using this program that was launched in 2000. Has been very effective in some way regarding trading with Africa. So talk to us about how that plays into what your organization, World Trade Center, the ideal name, is doing in Delaware in relationship to the continent.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about Delaware. I really appreciate it. I'm obviously a big fan of Delaware.
Yeah.
Our mission at World Trade Center Delaware is to help companies expand their business through international trade, and that leads to increased profitability. It helps them avoid downturns in one part of the world. It would be an upturn in another, and so it allows them to smooth out revenues and profitability. And it also helps them to hire more employees, create jobs. We know that companies that export are more profitable, less likely to go out of business, and pay higher wages to their employees. And all of those are really good reasons for companies to engage in international trade. And so we help companies do that by training. We have lots of training events. We have networking events. We take them overseas with us. We take them on trade missions. We work closely with U.S. government agencies, and we help our companies. We also help institutions such as universities or NGOs or government institutions, all with the idea to increase revenue, profitability, opportunities, and to create jobs.
So speaking of opportunities, what opportunities are available in Delaware for Africa that are looking to use AGOA to enter into the American markets?
Well, for companies that want to come to America, enter the American market, very often the first thing they want to do is set up to register their company, to set up a base within the United States. And as you mentioned, Delaware is the corporate capital of the world. We have a very long history of business services in Delaware. Our Court of Chancery dates back to the 1700s, and that's one of the reasons so many companies incorporate in Delaware, because our laws are stable. We have a large legal profession. It is a court of equity. You're not with all of the other kinds of cases that would appear in many courts. So you know that you're going to have a very well-trained and experienced bar and set of judges, chancellors, and that's a big reason for companies to incorporate in Delaware. Another reason is the services that the state itself gives. The state gives tremendous services, very quick turnaround time. They have very knowledgeable people who can assist with incorporation. And of course, the incorporation companies themselves, the business services, also help companies to come to Delaware. And we're also tax-free. We have no sales tax in Delaware. We have no, and our taxes are very balanced. The state is very favorable to businesses. So I think these are some of the reasons that companies want to come and set up their business using Delaware as a base. But that's not the only reason. We have a lot of other advantages in Delaware.
Earlier we were, before this interview, when in our conversation, you mentioned something very interesting. We were talking about fashion,
Yes,
textile, which is part of AGOA.
right.
We also talk about coffee,
Yes.
which is part of the agricultural aspect of AGOA. Women in particular are in that sector. And as we know, one of the things that you are very aware of, even in the US, is access to capital, access to the markets, how challenging it can be for women. So if American women are having the challenge, just think about the rural women in Africa, what they're dealing with. So AGOA sort of offered that platform for small enterprise as well as medium enterprise to enter into the American market. So you've been working with some of these companies. Could you elaborate on what you're doing with them?
Sure. We have been encouraging trade with Africa for many years. World Trade Center Delaware has an exhibition every year at the U.S. Africa Business Summit, even during, and we have a kickoff to the summit about 6 to 8 weeks prior to it. And we involve, of course, Corporate Council on Africa, which is the sponsor of the summit. And we invite ambassadors, trade counselors from Washington or New York to come and speak and make presentations about two-way opportunity, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses. We work with the diaspora communities in Delaware and the region. We have a Delaware Commission on African and Caribbean Affairs. And we also have a number of diaspora groups. We invite the different agencies from the U.S. government for this day, whether it's the Department of Commerce or U.S. Trade and Development Agency, the DFC, et cetera, to come and make presentations about the assistance they can give to U.S. companies that want to do trade, import and export, well, rather exporting with to Africa. We work with them on the import side more. We can do both. And then in the afternoon, we have matchmaking. And it's prearranged. The companies, when they register, know which embassies are coming, which USA and agencies are coming, whether it's USTDA, EXIM, et cetera. And so they can set up meetings with the representatives from the different embassies or the US government. And we do this every year before the kickoff. And it is to educate companies, particularly small companies, as to the opportunities available to them in Africa. We view Africa, it has 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies. A quarter of all the population of the world by, 2050 is going to be from the continent of Africa, has the youngest population, and it has technology that's absolutely booming. There are more mobile phones than people. So I think that it presents tremendous opportunities for two-way trade. It's not just a matter of exporting raw materials to the US. It's a matter of also working with companies in manufacturing, creating markets in both countries, the 54 countries on the continent, and in the US, creating opportunities for markets, expanding opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic.
That's very important to know. As you mentioned, the future is in Africa.
Absolutely.
And being the corporate center of the world, it is important that the American businesses and investors, actually global, pay attention to what is going on the continent. And you being a vehicle to open that door for them, not just to one particular market, but to the entire continent. Am I correct?
Correct. We are agnostic as to the countries. And I should say that World Trade Center Delaware is one of about 320 World Trade Centers in almost 100 countries. And there are a number of them throughout Africa. And we can work very closely with our partners in other World Trade Centers around the world to get information, to get referrals, to get advice, and to link companies in Africa to World Trade Centers that can then link them to opportunities in the US. And that's something that's very important. That, and also working with all the US government agencies. We represent EXIM, the International Trade Administration, USTDA. I could go on.
Yeah.
We have a lot of partnerships with these organizations, as well as the World Bank, different NGOs, different international organizations, and we try to be a good partner and find the best source of information and contact and potential market or training or investment for companies on both sides.
One of the, just following up on what you've just said, one of the conversations I've been hearing from people attending this event is, despite that, there isn't a lot of people that are taking advantage of AGOA. And it's because of what you just mentioned, lack of education. Right. Even though you are providing that, it's not reaching the audience that you would like it to for them to have access to that. So talk about that aspect, the challenge, and how you're working to overcome that, or what can be done. What do you see that can be done that can bridge that huge gap? Because as someone told me, AGOA is sort of American offering you a buffet. And who doesn't like a buffet? You know, you get to pick, but many people do not know about the buffet. So how can people come in and take advantage of this opportunity? How are you bridging that gap? What also are you hearing from people?
I think that's very true, and it's very difficult today to break through the noise in media. It's often very, very difficult. But what we're doing is offering training, offering information, offering newsletters. I mean, this is an example of this interview, and I'm very grateful to be here, as an opportunity for me to discuss benefits of Delaware, what benefits we can offer African companies. Other than corporation, we have more land, and Delaware is used for agriculture than anything else. It's our largest sector. But the port of Wilmington is a huge logistics hub, and
something important in Africa as well.
It's
and
the
global supply chain.
Absolutely, it is something, say, for agricultural companies in Africa. The Port of Wilmington has the largest dockside cold storage, the largest dockside fumigation of any port in the entire United States. It also is the only port where APHIS, USDA Inspection Service, is located inside the port, and this saves a tremendous amount of time. Its location is one stoplight away. When you come out of the port gates, you're one stoplight away from Canada, Chicago, or Florida. It is that convenient. Plus there are trains that go right through the port. So if you're bringing in agricultural products, they can reach the customer very, very quickly. It's also the closest port to the Atlantic, which is very important. And it's not just agricultural products that they handle. Automobiles, special cargo, very large equipment, or bulk cargo. So these are all opportunities that African companies can use to get their products into the United States very readily. So logistics, supply chain are very, very important in Delaware. We have a lot of warehousing, operations, our foreign trade zone program. The entire state is foreign trade zone 99. Foreign trade zones are very important for companies to locate there and offer many, many benefits to companies that want to bring their products here or set up manufacturing. So there are a lot of benefits for African companies that we offer beyond incorporation. Education services, that was discussed today.
Yeah.
And I think that may be key to having people take advantage of AGOA through education services. I think that could be a wedge to enticing them to take what's on the buffet,
Yeah.
as you put it.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of education, you have one of the top HBCU.
Absolutely.
In Delaware. So, you know, with the Presidential Advisory Council that was launched last year, that was announced last year, I think they came back this week. They were in Nigeria last week, traveling across the continent, as well with the Deputy Secretary General to promote trade and economic ties, as well as cultural opportunity with Africa. So why I mention education as you're talking about this, that's a huge part of our goal.
Yes.
Not just in time, because the key of closing that gap, the key of taking advantage of a lot of this opportunity that you're talking about, also the workforce, the labor aspect of it. So can you talk about that aspect?
Sure. Last year, it was last year, we had a delegation of high-level officials from Botswana, and this included the head of civil aviation and the HBCU. Delaware State University has a huge aviation program, huge pilot training program. And we took the delegation to see this and see how they train future pilots. Not just pilots, but airport managers, people who know how to run air systems. And that's very important. Another aspect we have in Delaware is aviation mechanic training. Our technical college, Delaware Technical Community College, trains powertrain and airframe mechanics. They are hired basically before they graduate. There's such a need for them. So this is one example where a country can take advantage of education. I think it's very important. And for instance, a professor from Delaware State University started the Center for Global Africa, which is located in Delaware, and it has a formal relationship with the African Union, and that relationship is also with the university. And that's very important because it's a two-way partnership.
Exchange of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is very key to a lot of what we're talking about. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit to some of the people that you've worked with. As going back to fashion, you said you do a bit of fashion. I mean, we can see that in the way that you dress. Africa is known for fashion. Africa is known for its culture, for its music, Afrobeat, and its food also, cuisine. Americans are discovering that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that I read an article a couple of years ago about the new trend of restaurants, and I think Ethiopia was at the top for Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's known as Little Addis Ababa.
And we do have some. It's emerging in Delaware too. Wilmington, Delaware is becoming a food town. So we will start getting some competition with different countries' cuisine. We have something working with the commission in September, they're going to have a very large program for a week on culture and trade and music and all of this. And I don't remember how many countries are involved, but we are very excited that they've done this a couple times and it's becoming annual. And it's a very good opportunity to not only for the African diaspora community, but also for anybody else who is interested in learning more about Africa.
Yeah. I mean, culture plays such an important part, even in business. The nuance of things, of communication. So that's why I brought it up. Like, AGOA, when people think of AGOA, some people might think about it as textile, some people might think about it as agriculture, but there's many parts to AGOA. That's what I'm hearing from you, with what you're doing.
I think that AGOA has the potential to change the business relationship between the U.S. and Africa. I think it has the opportunity to incentivize companies on both sides and organizations, academic institutions on both sides of the Atlantic. I think it presents opportunities for training, for not just bringing over widgets, let's say, importing widgets or importing raw materials. There are going to be ways that we can work with each other in a partnership to advance the manufacturing levels, to make people more aware in the United States about all of the opportunities that Africa offers. I mentioned before, there are more mobile phones than people in Africa. There are tremendous technology opportunities in Africa from Africans that we can use. We're still using landlines in the US very often.
Not in Africa.
You don't use them in Africa. You basically leapfrogged completely over landlines, and what that did was expand communication opportunities. I think people were using mobile banking on an everyday basis in Africa.
In Kenya?
Certainly before here.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of technology we see going to corporate, we see Google investing in Africa.
Absolutely.
Facebook, IBM has been in Africa for a very long time. People often don't know that when I say, did you realize that Watson was developed in Kenya? And they're like, oh, really? So a lot of research, a lot of these multinational companies have been in Africa. What the opportunity that AGOA presents to them, to Americans, is for small businesses to take advantage of what the larger corporations also have. Am I correct?
I believe so, because we have companies in the United States that, for instance, import a tremendous amount of raw materials from Africa. It offers them the opportunity to do more than that. I'm thinking of a company I know of that imports scents and the bases for nutraceuticals, etc.
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity, instead of just bringing in raw materials, to actually do packaging in Africa and helping those companies in Africa to expand across Africa. Because right now we know that intra-Africa, intercontinental trade within the continent is very low.
Yeah.
It is harder to trade with other countries very often in Africa than it is to export to the United States. And I think that with all of the changes that are happening within African legislation and regulation, it will be much easier. And that will open up markets for American companies that want to do manufacturing in Africa and sell on the continent. I think it's going to be a tremendous opportunity.
Okay. As a woman, you are in an industry. You started out as an engineer. We were
Yes.
talking about that earlier in the mining industry.
Correct.
We know mining is very important to the U.S. We're talking about lithium. We're talking about a lot of product that we use in our everyday thing. Talk about the importance of empowering women through AGOA, both on both sides.
I think that AGOA offers the opportunity for women on both sides to make that first step as an exporter or importer or manufacturer. And it offers financial opportunities. It offers opportunities to work with the governments, who then can be a backup, if you will, a reliable partner. And I think that's what's missing. I think women have had difficulty. Yes, there's difficulty certainly with access to capital. More importantly, there has been difficulty accessing reliable partners. And I think that having that stability will enable them to expand their businesses.
And we improve their family's life
Absolutely.
and improve the country's life.
And I think that an example of that is we're working with Mutumbo Coffee. And of course, Dick Mutumbo is known throughout the world, the very, very famous Hall of Famer basketball player and philanthropist. And he has a company, Mutumbo Coffee, and proceeds go to Women in Coffee Initiative in Africa to make sure they're fairly compensated. That's one example. And they are helping us in turn. We have a paid internship program. So if you buy Mutumbo Coffee through our website or QR code, a very small portion of that will go to our paid internship. And that paid internship program we have is training the future international business leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah, and one of the things that you mentioned to me especially is important for marginalized community, students that come from those environment community that do not have opportunity that are available to other people. So this sort of closing the gap, so to speak, of closing the wealth gap. So it's another part that when we think of AGOA, the business, like, well, it doesn't really, I can't really connect that. So you are helping us to connect all of the benefits. So I'm gonna ask you, in wrapping this up, that as this 3-day summit, annual summit, at the end of it, what would you like to see?
That's a hard question because there are several things, but if I have to say one thing, I would like to see increased visibility about it. I really would. Of course, I would like to see it passed immediately or yesterday if possible, so that people would have this greater opportunity when it's renewed. I think that increased visibility about the program, increased training about the program, through either the trade hubs, Department of Commerce, and governments overseas, understanding to get the message out to their constituents as well as us. I think that's really, really important because, as I said earlier, there is so much noise out there. It's very difficult to break through all of the different types of communication. You mentioned Facebook. Well, there's Twitter, X, Instagram, Pinterest,
TikTok.
and then there are the professional ones, the LinkedIn, and everybody has newsletters, everybody has websites, everybody's putting out information. How do you cut through that? And I think a concerted public affairs, public relations program on both sides, both the African countries and the American government and American companies that have benefited getting those stories out, I think that will help a great deal, because it would be sad if nobody took anything from the buffet.
Because it will go to waste.
Absolutely.
Okay. I always ask this in my interview. What gives you hope when you look at the U.S.-Africa relations?
Young people from the diaspora.
Thank you.
They are a huge link to opportunity on both sides. I look at the diaspora as a gem. It just needs to be cut. It's a little rough. The young people are a little bit rough. We need to polish them up a little bit. But they have the possibility of becoming the link that develops the relationship on both sides.
And as someone said to me in an interview, sometimes earlier this month, is U.S. doesn't come with the baggages that other colonial power has. So it's sort of that neutral platform. And you have a lot of young Africa from the diaspora that, not only want to come to America, you go to any country in Nigeria, hip-hop, you hear hip-hop music, pizza, everything about America is what people really want to. So again, thank you very much. I truly want to thank you for joining us to talk about how you are elevating Delaware and African relationship. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you.